Hi, welcome to the 14-day weather forecast. Things have been very mixed recently. In the north there has been a good deal of fine and sunny weather, but in the south it's often been cloudier and wetter. So how's it looking during the next couple of weeks? Well, I think in a word, not great, or at least it's going to be pretty mixed. Now, I'll begin by taking a look at the picture across Europe and the North Atlantic. This sequence starts at 12 GMT on Tuesday, the 29th of June. At the outset, there's a little bit of rain in the southeast, but areas to the north are mainly dry. We've got the area of low pressure still centred close to the southeastern England. That's what's keeping it more mixed down in southern counties. That will be moving away in the short term, so there's going to be an increasing amount of dry and quite warm conditions. But as we go through the weekend, it looks like another transition will begin to shape up as an area of low pressure pushes in from the Atlantic. You can see on Saturday there's an increasing risk of showers in all parts of the country, and temperatures will probably be taking a dip as well. That unsettled theme then continues through Sunday and into the early part of next week. In fact, there are some indications there on this particular sequence of it becoming quite windy for the time of year and the chance of some longer and more persistent outbreaks of rain as areas of low pressure cross the country. Just quickly to show you the jet stream profile associated with that sequence, because it really helps to explain quite nicely what's happening. At the outset, the jet stream's mostly to the north of the UK. Now, as we head through the coming days, it does start to change. We can see a strengthening jet stream moving out of North America, and by the weekend, we can see here that the UK is essentially to its north, and this really does look quite an active jet stream for the time of year. Not really very seasonal at all, I'm afraid, and that will be steering those areas of low pressure in towards the UK, and that's in turn bringing the showers or the longer spells of rain. That continues to be the case into the early part of next week, as I said, so that rather changeable or unsettled theme continues. And with us sitting on the northern side of the jet, it's not going to be particularly warm by then. But in the shorter term, as I said, temperatures will be rising, and this chart is showing maximum forecast values for 15 GMT on Friday, the 2nd of July. We can see they're into the low or mid-20s across much of the UK, probably warmest there in the southeast, 24 Celsius, but even in Scotland, parts of Scotland at least, we're seeing 23, 24 Celsius. So pretty warm for a time. That's before the unsettled conditions start to return. In terms of rainfall, this is quite an interesting pair of charts. On the left is the GFS 0 to 5 day aggregate rainfall, and on the right is the 0 to 10 days. What we can see is in the short term, it's a pretty dry picture. Values are generally less than 10 millimetres in much of the country. They are a little higher in southern Wales and the southwest, but all in all, it's not particularly wet. But on the right-hand side of the chart, there's a big increase. So remember, what the right-hand side of the chart is really showing here is it's the difference between days 0 to 5 and days 5 to 10. You can see values now are about 30, 40, 50 millimetres in much of the country. The driest conditions, according to this, are in the southeast and East Anglia, where totals are between 10 and approximately 20 millimetres. So it is pointing towards that transition to more unsettled weather later on during the first week and into the second week of the forecast period. Another thing I think just worth mentioning, as I sort of touched upon there, is with that strengthening jet stream in areas of low pressure, there is a chance of it becoming quite windy at times, perhaps unseasonably so. Here's a forecast for 06 GMT on Monday, the 5th of July. It's showing wind gusts, so maximum wind gust speeds, and you can see here in the south they're about 30 to 35, 36 miles an hour. So nothing really exceptional, but quite windy for the time of year, and it probably will be quite noticeable if this type of wind speed strength does turn out to be correct. So How do the other deterministic models stack up against those GFS charts at 1 week ahead? Here's the GFS, just to remind you what it was going for. You can see by Tuesday, the 6th of July, areas of low pressure really close to the UK. We've got high pressure to the southwest. The Azores high pressure not having a great deal of influence. All in all, looking quite unsettled if it's correct. The ICON model, the German global model, at the same time, here it is a bit different. We can see high pressure building from the southwest, and it is at this point having more influence over the UK, but we've got areas of low pressure there to the west, and also to the southeast. So it's I would say quite a changeable picture in prospect there if that sequence was taken forward. The Canadian model, this has a relatively deep area of low pressure to the northwest of the UK, and there's a southwesterly flow across the country. I think this would be suggesting the likelihood of showers or longer spells of rain in most of the country, rather unsettled once again. The UK Met Office chart at the same time, there are differences in all of these, but again, it's quite an unsettled picture. We've got low pressure over the northern half of the UK. The Azores high pressure perhaps having a little bit more influence in the south at times, but all in all, it's quite an unsettled picture. Finally, something a little different, the European model, the ECM. As I've said before, this is generally considered to be the most accurate of the global models, but the differences between them are not huge. The reason I thought I'd bring up two charts from this is because something quite interesting happens. The one on the left is again for Tuesday, the 6th of July, so it's at the same point as the previous ones which I've just been discussing. We can see there's an area of low pressure centred to the west of the UK. Now, on the other deterministic models, they've been tending to bring those areas of low pressure eastwards across the country, hence the showers or longer spells of rain. But on the ECM run, at least on this particular update, what we can see is that that area of low pressure really becomes slow moving or stuck to the west of the UK. The chart on the right is 48 hours later, so it's at 00 GMT on Thursday, the 8th of July. And what we're seeing at that point is very warm air being pulled up ahead of that area of low pressure, which is slow moving in the Atlantic. Potentially quite a plumy situation. Temperatures down at the ground level would be rising very nicely. I would expect it may be turning very warm, even hot with this type of pattern. But it is quite different to what the other computer models are showing. So I think, therefore, it's worth moving on to the Ensemble data to really focus on the second week of the forecast period. And I'll start by bringing up the European Ensemble. And I think the really important thing to note here is the green line is the ECM operational run. That's the one which is shown as plume type scenario. But look what happens. It fits into the Ensemble quite nicely. The purple line is the mean of all the runs. And until about the 5th of July, the 6th of July, it's really following those. But once we reach the 7th, the 8th, that's when that really warm air is shown to be moving northwards across the UK. The operational run on this plot has gone off the top of the chart, and that's because it's an outlier. It's showing something which is very, very different to most of the other runs, if not all of them, in the Ensemble. The point being that plume scenario, that very warm scenario, would be considered unlikely because of the Ensemble data not offering support for it. But don't discount it completely. I'm just saying that at the moment, it looks unlikely according to the ECM Ensemble data. Next, I'll show the GEFS Ensemble data for London. And on the air mass profile at the top here, we can see it's mostly above average. The thick black line shows a 30-year mean, and most of the individual runs are above it until about the 7th of July, and that's at the point where the ECM operational was showing the transition to very warm conditions. And we can see actually in the GEFS, there are actually a few runs which are bringing in warmer upper level air at this point, significantly warmer upper level air. The mean, the purple line there is increasing at this point. So perhaps a suggestion as well from some of the runs in the GEFS that we could find low pressure becoming slow moving to the west of the UK and some somewhat warmer or even much warmer air ahead of it being pulled up from southern Europe. It's as I say, most of the runs in the GEFS don't show this either. Perhaps interestingly there, the thick blue line is the control run, and you can see that really is bringing in very warm air for a time. I think, and then later on what we see is the mean dips away again. Most of the runs are going cooler towards the end of 16-day period. So all in all, from this, I'd say there is a low chance of it turning much warmer for a short time around the 7th, 8th, 9th of July, but it's probably maybe 20% chance, and the European operational run was really an extreme example of it. In terms of the rainfall, well, there isn't a great deal in the short term. We see drier conditions returning as that area of low pressure pulls away eastwards. But then from about 3rd, 4th, 5th of July, the number of rain spikes increases once again, and the risk of showers or longer spells of rain then continues through the rest of the 16-day period. Doesn't look particularly wet though, probably not too bad in the southeast if this is correct. How does the Cardiff plot stack up against it, just to move further west in the UK? Well, in terms of the air mass profile, it's similar, but around the 7th, 8th and 9th, I think there are fewer warm or very warm runs in there. We're further west here, of course, so if there is a plume coming up from southern Europe, it's more likely to be hitting southeast England and East Anglia than western parts of Britain. In terms of rainfall, some dry weather in the shorter term, but then again from about 3rd to 4th of July, the number of rain spikes increases, and there are some big rain spikes in there going through to the end of the period. So this does look wetter than the London plot. Finally on the 16-day GEFS, here's the Glasgow plot, mostly above average air temperatures to begin with. But then towards the end, we see the purple line dipping back down, and all in all, it's somewhat uncertain pitch, but generally looks quite average. The rainfall, after a dry start, the spikes begin to increase, just like in Cardiff and London, and then they continue. It rains. It looks like quite a wet picture going forwards through much of the first half of July. So taking those three charts into account, I think what we're seeing is a transition. Whereas recently the driest weather has been in the north, the wettest and cooler conditions actually have been in the south. These charts are suggesting that pattern's flipping back to its more normal scenario, which is for the driest and warmest weather to become focused on southern counties with a greater risk of rain as you head further north and west. So just to look at the 2-meter temperatures in a little bit of detail, so the ones which we experience down at the ground level, not the air mass profile, which is about 1,500 meters above our heads. Here's a London 16-day data table. Each column represents the maximum temperatures on a given day from each of the runs in the GEFS. Generally, there's lots of orange going forward, and the orange category is 21 to 25 Celsius. So it's not looking particularly cool in the southeast. If anything, temperatures may well be a little bit above the average on a number of days. But as we've seen recently, much will depend on the extent of cloud cover and rain. If that comes along, those temperatures will take a tumble. And with showery conditions, there could be significant local variations. Jumping up to Cardiff, or should I say across to Cardiff really, temperatures here are not as high, mostly in the lighter orange bracket, which is 16 to 20 Celsius. There is some darker orange, but as I say, the bulk of the runs are in the 16 to 20 on most of the days. Right, up to Glasgow now, so the northwest. Again, there's a lot of light orange for 16 to 20, but also there's some yellow, and that tends to increase as we go forwards. That's the 11 to 15C, rather cool and disappointing category, I think, for a time of year. But those runs are in a minority on any given day. Nonetheless, I think it's pointing towards the chance of cooler conditions at times in the northwest. Certainly on the whole, temperatures do look like they will be lower than in the southeast. Rainfall data tables. So if on the 16-day GFS plots, we're looking at the number of spikes. This is a different way of looking at the same data. The London table here shows there's an ongoing risk of rain, perhaps highest around here, which is the first weekend of the forecast period. But even going forwards, blues, greens and purples continue to appear. Those are the runs which are showing significant amounts of rain. There's also quite a lot of a dark grey, which is showing small amounts of rain. The light greys are runs going for completely dry conditions in that given time slot. So I would expect there to be dry days, but also rain on some, with a possibility of more heavy and organised bands of rain as we go forwards. But on the whole, not particularly wet in the southeast, probably. Across to Cardiff. Normally I go straight to Glasgow, but I thought the pattern this week was sufficiently interesting to add Cardiff into the locations which I'm focusing on. What we can see is there's an ongoing risk of rain. It looks wetter than London generally. A smaller number of runs which are going for completely dry conditions at any given time. Now to Glasgow, and that, if anything, is even wetter than Cardiff. We can see there's very few runs which are going into the light grey bucket as we move forwards through the second week. Significant numbers still going for days when the rainfall's light, but purples, blues, greens, yellows, and even some of the pinky colouring down there are all indicating the likelihood of heavier rain at times. So pretty much a northwest to southeast pattern showing its hand. The 16-day surface level pressure data table for York is also quite informative. To begin with, it's all the columns are made up entirely of the yellow, so 1,011 to 1,025 millibars. But through the first weekend of the forecast period and beyond, you can see there are greens in the columns there. Those are runs which are going for low pressure, 996 to 1,010 millibars. So the trend there is towards somewhat lower pressure after the first few days, and then it really continues through the rest of the period. There is a sign there around the 10th, the 11th, perhaps, of ridges of high pressure having more influence for a time. Again, that could fit in with the chance of warmer conditions as low pressure becomes slow moving, at least for a day or two in the Atlantic towards the 8th, 9th, 10th of July. The 10 to 15 day pressure anomaly chart is showing a very weak anomaly. It's a negative anomaly over much of the UK. We can see around -1, shown by the light blue. To the west, to the southeast, there's a positive anomaly. Once more, it's focusing on the pattern which is expected to be high pressure centered to the east and lower pressure to the west. And it does, again, raise that possibility of low pressure becoming slow moving, at least for a time, to our west, which could allow warm air to push up from the south, at least temporarily. So to summarise the next 14 days, week 1, it starts cloudy in the south and brighter in the north. It's then likely to turn sunnier and warmer in all areas for a time. However, later on, there's a transition back to more unsettled conditions with a growing likelihood of showers or longer spells of rain. Week 2, generally quite unsettled, with an ongoing chance of wet conditions, particularly in the northwest. The driest and warmest spells are likely to be found in the southeast, and there is a low chance of it turning very warm or even hot as low pressure becomes slow moving to the west of the UK. Were that to happen, the greatest chance of it turning hot would be in the southeast and East Anglia. So there we have it. It's a mixed picture, I would say, at times quite unseasonable. Despite that, there will be warmer and drier days, particularly during the first week. But all in all, not great, I think, if you're hoping for settled and summery conditions through much of the next couple of weeks. So I hope you enjoyed this and found it useful. If you did, please remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons. Thanks now. Bye.